I think the hardest thing that I've seen in the space, and one that DEI leaders don't talk about enough, is hiring and pipeline development is extraordinarily hard. Across most sectors right now, diversity is extraordinarily challenging in the labor market. Because it's not because of a lack of care. I think it's super simplistic to be like, companies just aren't wanting to hire people of color, or aren't wanting to hire women, or aren't wanting to hire, whatever group it is. There is a pipeline issue. And I think that DEI leaders are underserving the issues by not talking about this with candor and with courage. This is sort of like the biggest elephant secret in the room. Like when if you're looking for a full stack engineer that has Unity experience, Unity is a development platform that's very, very important in gaming, right? And you do a search in the whole city of San Francisco, which is one of the greatest densities of tech talent in the world, there may be 100 people that have the skill sets to do that job. Many of them are gainfully employed, aren't searching, and actually only a fraction of them are underrepresented. So, that 100, I'm not saying there's 100 underrepresented. There may be 100 that have the skill. And then you're looking at, and you're segmenting the data based on identity characteristics so that you can, tilt your funnels towards historically excluded communities. And you go, oh my gosh, there's 3 people who are underrepresented with the skill set we need for this job in all of San Francisco. How are we going to win? This is the behind the door conversation in the trenches, in the hiring space, that I think we don't talk about publicly enough. And so the question is, why don't we talk about that, right? If it's so patently obvious, why wouldn't we, just name it? I think part of what's happening is there's a fear of being accused of doing nothing. And so partly why I love having both the DEI portfolio and the social impact portfolio at my job is because there's a flywheel here. So what we do at Zynga is we actually really pretty laser focus our social impact spend in actually expanding pipelines of access into tech and gaming jobs by investing in early career talent, collegiate talent, upskilling women in STEM, a whole bunch of philanthropic spends that can produce inflections and pretty quick ROI when it comes to reskilling or upskilling people to actually participate in the job market, in the tech job market, and in the gaming job market. The other piece is we actually get to tell that story as part of our employer brand story. And internally, the employee response when we share about the investments we're making globally in these structured, complex philanthropic partnerships. So these are not like little charitable donations. These are like building pipelines, right? The employees love that because they respond like they're working for a purpose-driven company. And if you know the data, underrepresented groups particularly, but actually most employees these days want to work at a purpose-driven company that is doing good in the world. And then we actually can tell those same stories with integrity and authenticity. We're not virtue signaling here. We're value signaling. Another thing that comes up for me, and this is, I'll be forming this thought as I put it out there. The pressure on DEI leaders to not fail is astounding in this moment, right? I think one of the casualties of polarization and the current moment of populism that we live in globally, right? This isn't just a UK, US thing, but this is really a global trend line, is that polarization breeds binary thinking. In the binary, you are either doing the right thing or you're not doing the right thing. But anybody who's an operator knows that that's not life, right? You are trying things. You are trying to put best practice into practice. You are trying to leverage data to create programs and initiatives, and you're failing a fair amount of the time, right? Like we try things that don't work, and we don't really get the grace to talk about that, right? Grace is about holding a space for the reality of human frailty so that actually the things that aren't working can drive our growth just as much as the things that are working. And there's so little grace in the DEI space right now. The public doesn't have a lot of grace for it. The internal employees don't have a lot of grace for it. Everybody is feeling, like people feel like you need to make this work right now, or the detractors, and there are many, are waiting for the first mistake to say, see the number of times that one element of a diversity training gets taken out of context, and then a disgruntled employee puts it online with no context around it, and the whole company just gets taken down on Twitter because they're anti-meritocratic, or they're anti-male, or they're anti-white. And now the company is spending months of energy and money and PR time recovering from that harm that was caused, that reputational harm that was caused. And that money and energy and time is not going into advancing equity and justice. This is very high stakes work. And we have to find ways within safer spaces or braver spaces to actually start to talk about the reality of art, that this work is an art and a science. It's scientifically and empirically informed. And the art part is that humans and anything humans touch are dynamic and complex systems that we have limited understanding over. So when we try and implement something, it could be straight out of the Harvard Business Review, right? Like proven, there's a deep lit review on it, and it can not work, right? And if we can't tell that story, then we're underserving the broader movement towards human dignity, because we're not actually empowering other companies, our peers, other DEI leaders to learn and grow with one another. And so I don't think we can be elbows on the table in a state of defense and very proprietary about this if we all care about advancing the issues as a global community. Whenever I'm in gatherings, and there's a lot of like DEI roundtables and things like that out there, I frequently lead with, hey, we tried something and it totally didn't work. Let me tell you about it and what we learned from that and how we're trying to improve. Yeah. And it kind of shocks the room, but I'm trying to model the way. I'm trying to model, not everybody just flexing and flossing with like, we do it perfect, because that is not true.
To even get to greatness, sometimes you're going to have to fail. Like, it's very rare that you're going to do something and it's going to go amazing first time round. I mean, I can't remember the last time I did something and it was amazing the first time round. Other than my daughter, I think so far we're on a good track. We're 3 years in and she's okay. So I'm doing some good things there.
And I will riff on what you're saying as a parent of two very intelligent, strong-willed, and fiery daughters myself. I think parenting is an area that constantly reminds me of my own humility, frailty, and fallibility. The number of times that my wife and partner and I have thought we had the parenting moves down, and then something happens, and we're like, oh, we have limited control over this situation.
Definitely. One thing that works one day, the next day you try it and you're like, okay, maybe not. That's not going to work.
Total fail.